It started with a text message that buzzed my phone at exactly 7:42 p.m. on a Thursday. "Hey sis, can you send me $600 for Lily's Sweet 16? We've booked the ballroom, her dress is already being made, and the cake's $600 totally worth it. It's her big day." I stared at the message, blinking once, twice. Then I scrolled through the pictures she'd attached to chandelier, lit ballroom dripping in white roses, a crystal, studded gown that looked like it belonged to royalty, and a towering pin can. Gold cake so extravagant it could have fed a wedding party of 100. My sister, Rachel, who hadn't worked in almost 6 years, Rachel, who believed the universe owed her luxury because she'd once been too sensitive for real jobs, Rachel, who called me every few months with a new emergency. I put the phone down and exhaled. For context, I'm Eva Monroe, 32 years old, single, and the only one in my family who actually works for a living. I manage business turnarounds, the kind of consultant who gets called in when companies are on the verge of collapse. My job is tough, strategic, and often lonely, but it pays well, very well. My parents, however, have never stopped reminding me that money isn't everything, except apparently when they need it. I'd been their emergency fund for years, paying off Mom's credit cards, bailing Dad out of short-term investment issues, even covering Rachel's overdue rent once or twice, but this was new. This was audacity mixed with glitter. I typed back one simple sentence, "Get a job." I didn't even hit the period key, just sent it as it was. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again, but it wasn't Rachel. It was Dad, "Pay or get out of this family." That was all he wrote. I read it 3 times, I laughed once. Then I just sat there, stunned at how easily love could turn into a threat when money entered the equation. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying every moment of my childhood, how Rachel was always the princess, the one who could do no wrong, while I was the serious, quiet one who took everything too personally. How Mom used to tell people, Rachel's our heart and Eva's our brain. It sounded flattering when I was 10. By the time I was 25, I realized it was an excuse, their way of saying that I existed to solve their problems, not to be loved. At 2:15 a.m., I sat up in bed and whispered to myself, cancel everything. That was the moment it clicked. I wasn't going to keep funding their fantasies. I wasn't going to keep being their safety net. Not this time. Subscribe. That's what I said out loud, smiling bitterly as if I were narrating my own documentary. Because maybe that's what it felt like, the start of a new chapter where I'd finally unsubscribed from their manipulation. The next morning, I woke up before dawn and made coffee. The city outside my Miami apartment was still sleeping, lights shimmering faintly against the dark sea. My mind, however, was sharp, methodical, calculating. By 8:30 a.m., I'd made a decision. If my family wanted to make me the villain, I'd give them a story worth remembering. But it wouldn't be through shouting or drama. It would be quiet, clean, professional, strategic. I opened my laptop and pulled up an email thread from 3 months ago, the one where Dad had begged me to sign the loan for their new house renovation. I had, of course, said yes at the time. The house was legally in his and Mom's name, but the renovation loan, that was in mine. I'd been paying the installments quietly, automatically, without ever checking. Until now, I logged into the account, checked the balance, and froze. They'd missed 2 payments, late fees had stacked, interest had spiked. The house, my childhood home, was 1 bad month away from foreclosure. A bitter smile crept onto my face. So that's where my money's really been going. I whispered, ballrooms, cakes, dresses, and they had the nerve to call me family only when they needed cash. By mid-morning, Rachel had started her guilt parade on social media. Her Instagram story was a slideshow of privilege, her daughter Lily twirling in the half-finished gown, her captions dripping in passive aggression. So excited for Lily's big day, still waiting on some people to pull their weight, #family first, #do it for the kids. She didn't tag me. She didn't have to. The comments poured in, "Oh my God, this is so unfair. Who wouldn't help with something so special? Family should always support family." The likes stacked up like little knives. By noon, I got a call from my mother. "Eva, what is wrong with you?" she demanded. "Your sister's humiliated. Everyone knows you refused to help, Mom." I said evenly, "Since when did birthdays become corporate events?" "It's not about that. It's about family. You've always thought you're better than everyone else." "I don't think that," I said quietly, "but I am done being everyone's wallet." There was a long silence. Then she hissed, "If your father sees this, you're going to regret it." Click. She hung up at 1:20 p.m. Rachel texted again, "You've really done it now. Dad's furious. We're having a family dinner tomorrow night. Be there." I didn't reply. Instead, I spent the next few hours digging deeper into the loan records, tracing every cent. And what I found wasn't just irresponsible, it was intentional. Dad had redirected the home equity funds, nearly $50,000, into a joint family business venture. Except there was no business. There was a shell company, registered under Rachel's name. I sat back in my chair, heart pounding. They'd used me completely, and not even cleverly sloppily, assuming I'd never check. That night, I walked through my apartment with my phone in hand, recording a short video. This, I said softly to the camera, is what happens when family thinks you're their ATM, but the game's over. I saved the clip but didn't post it. Not yet. I wasn't ready to expose them publicly. Not until I'd set everything in motion. The next evening, I drove to my parents' house for dinner. The same house whose mortgage was, unbeknownst to them, one misstep away from being revoked. When I entered, Rachel was standing at the door in her silk robe, smirking. "You showed up, brave. Hi to you too," I said flatly. Dad was already at the table, arms crossed, the picture of self-righteous anger. Mom hovered near the stove, pretending to cook. The air was thick not with food, but tension. As soon as I sat down, Dad started. "Your behavior is unacceptable, Eva. You embarrassed your sister publicly." "I told her to get a job," I replied. "That's not embarrassing, it's advice." He slammed his hand on the table. "You think money makes you better than us. No," I said calmly. "I think it's supposed to make us responsible." But clearly I was wrong. Mom shot me a warning look. "Don't you talk to your father that way." I leaned forward. Then maybe my father shouldn't threaten to disown me over a party. The silence that followed was deafening. Rachel, of course, broke it first. "You're so ungrateful. After everything this family's done for you," I laughed, loudly. "Everything you've done for me, Rachel, please. You've done nothing but take." Dad's face turned red. "Enough," he barked. "If you won't help this family, you can leave. Don't come back." I nodded slowly, okay. Then I stood up, smoothed my blazer, and looked him in the eye. "But before I go, you should check your email tomorrow morning." And with that, I walked out. That night, back in my apartment, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just planned. At exactly 11:47 p.m., I logged into my banking portal and pulled up the mortgage contract. My signature was the guarantor, which meant I had full rights to withdraw, restructure, or terminate payments if necessary. I clicked the option, Cancel Automatic Payments. Then, on the renovation contractor's portal, Cancel Pending Work Orders. Then, on the event management company Rachel had tagged online, Request Refund Inquiry. Every click echoed like a heartbeat. Cancel, 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 and by 8:30 the next morning, the first domino had already fallen. My phone buzzed with the first of many notifications, all from my bank. Automatic payments for the house loan stopped. Renovation contractors canceled. The maintenance contract for the pool and garden that I'd quietly funded for my parents terminated. For the first time in years, I was in control, not out of anger, but out of necessity. They wanted to make me the villain. Fine, I'd be one. But I'd be the kind of villain who did her homework. At 9:10 a.m., my father called. His tone was sharp enough to cut glass. "What the hell did you do, Eva?" "Good morning to you too, Dad. Don't play games. I just got a notice from the bank saying the mortgage payment stopped. You told me you'd take care of that." I took a sip of my coffee and smiled faintly. I did, for a while. But since I'm apparently not part of this family anymore, I figured it made sense to stop paying for it. There was silence. Then he shouted, "You ungrateful." I hung up. Not out of defiance, but out of peace. For once, I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Around 11 a.m., my assistant Maya walked into my office. "You've got that look again," she said, setting down a file. "The one you get before you ruin someone's quarter." I laughed softly, something like that, but this time it's personal. She raised an eyebrow. "Your family again." "Yeah," she hesitated. "Want to talk about it?" I considered it, then shook my head. "Not yet. I have something I need to finish first." What I didn't tell her was that I'd already spent half the night drafting emails, one to the bank, one to the event hall, one to Rachel's so-called business. Each message worded politely, professionally, legally airtight. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to threaten. I was just going to remove my name from every place where they'd hidden behind it. By noon, those emails were sent, and by 4 p.m., the storm hit. Rachel's first call came while I was driving home. "Eva, what the hell did you do? The ballroom canceled the booking. They said the payment source was revoked." "Good." I said evenly, "Good." She shrieked. Lily's crying. The decorators are demanding a deposit refund. Do you even understand what you've done? I do. I said. You lied to me, manipulated Dad, and used my name for a loan. You've had a free ride for too long. It ends today. You're insane, she screamed. You can't do this to your own family. I pulled the car over, gripping the steering wheel tightly. You did this to yourself, Rachel. I'm just taking my name back. I hung up before she could respond. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my balcony overlooking Biscayne Bay. The sun was sinking behind the water, painting the sky in streaks of gold and violet. I should have felt guilty. Maybe a few years ago I would have, but now I felt light. No one was going to guilt me into financing their delusions again. Still, a small part of me couldn't shake the ache, the sadness that it had come to this. Family shouldn't have to be taught boundaries, they should know them. I opened my phone and checked Rachel's Instagram again. Every post from the night before gone. They hash family first captions, the party teasers, even the cake photo deleted. But one story remained, a simple black screen with white text. Some people would rather destroy family than spend a dime. You know who you are. A few mutual friends had commented with heart emojis. A few tagged me. Let them, I thought. The truth was coming soon enough. The next morning, I met with my lawyer, Mr. Patel, an older, calm man with sharp eyes who'd helped me set up my consultancy firm years ago. You're absolutely within your rights, he said after reviewing the loan files. They've used your credit to open a fraudulent business entity. You can file for immediate release of liability and initiate an asset freeze. Do it, I said. He looked up. Are you sure this could ruin them financially? They already ruined my trust. I replied, money's the least of it. He nodded slowly. You've changed, Eva. Not changed, I said quietly. Just done being naive. 2 days later, the fallout arrived. Dad's car repossessed. Mom's credit cards frozen. Rachel's event company shut down by the bank pending audit. They must have realized by then that I wasn't bluffing. On the third night, I came home to find 3 missed calls from Mom, 5 from Dad, and 13 from Rachel. I ignored them all. Instead, I cooked dinner pasta, wine, and quiet music, and watched the city lights twinkle below. I was halfway through my meal when my intercom buzzed. MS Monroe. The security guard said, "There's a woman here claiming to be your sister. She's pretty upset." Of course she was, I sighed. Let her up. When Rachel arrived, she looked nothing like the glamorous woman from her Instagram stories. Her hair was frizzy, her eyes puffy from crying, her voice cracked. "Eva, please," she whispered. "I need to talk to you." I motioned toward the sofa. "Go ahead." She sat down, twisting her fingers nervously. "You don't understand. Everything's falling apart. The bank's freezing the accounts. Dad's blaming me. Mom's losing it. And you're surprised." I interrupted softly. "You lied, Rachel. You built your life on my signature and my silence." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I just wanted Lily to have one perfect night. You had everything, Eva. I just wanted her to feel special for once." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I exhaled slowly. "You could have asked. You didn't have to steal." "I didn't steal. I borrowed. Without permission." I said quietly, "That's called theft." She covered her face, sobbing. "Please, don't let them take the house. Mom's begging me to fix this. I don't know what to do." For a long moment, I just watched her, my sister, the same girl who used to lock me out of our room when we were little, now trembling in my living room. "You want to fix it?" I asked. She nodded desperately. "Then get a job." Her head shot up, eyes red. "You can't be serious." "I'm dead serious. You start working, you take responsibility, and maybe I'll help restructure the loan, but not before that." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. "You've turned into a monster." "No," I said softly. "I've turned into someone who stopped enabling one." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The next morning, I woke up to chaos online. Rachel's meltdown had gone public. She'd posted screenshots of our text messages, twisted with captions like, "My rich sister destroyed our family." "She canceled our home. She's cruel." The post was blowing up hundreds of comments, half of them calling me heartless, the other half suspicious. I knew what I had to do. At 10:45 a.m., I logged into my own account, posted a calm message with attached documents proof of the loan fraud, the signatures, the transfers under Rachel's name. No captions. No hashtags, just truth. Within an hour, her entire post vanished. And by evening, people were turning against her. Wow, she really scammed her sister. Imagine doing this and still playing the victim. The silence from my family after that was almost eerie. No calls, no texts, nothing. Just a void where guilt used to live. A week later, Mr. Patel called again. The foreclosure process has been halted, he said, but they'll have to sell some assets to repay what's owed. Would you like to recover the funds or forgive the balance? I stared out my office window at the skyline glittering against the afternoon sun. Neither, I said finally. Let them keep the house, but I want full separation. No shared accounts, no obligations. Not 1 cent connected to my name. He paused. You're sure? Yes, I said quietly. This isn't about destroying them. It's about ending the control. That night, I sat alone on my balcony again, glass of wine in hand. The wind was warm. The city hummed softly. And for the first time in my life, my phone didn't buzz with demands, guilt trips, or fake emergencies. Just silence, peaceful, liberating silence, but the story wasn't over yet. Because revenge, when done right, doesn't end in destruction, it ends in realization. And my family's realization was still coming. The cool glass of the trophy on my office shelf still felt like a stranger in my hand. People love to pin shiny things on success plaques, interviews, little round features in magazines, but none of it had the weight of the decision I'd made that spring. I'd chosen clarity over comfort. I'd chosen boundaries over the slow burn of being used, and now I was finishing what I'd started. When the dust of the legal filings settled and the bank had frozen accounts and audited Rachel's phantom company, people assumed the story was done. They loved tidy endings, news cycles thrived on them, but real endings, the ones that leave you quiet and whole, take work. They take choreography. They take mercy or its absence at precisely the right moment. I had a final move left. It wasn't cruel. It was surgical. It was designed to teach them what responsibility looked like, to plant the seed of accountability where entitlement had been watering itself for years. The plan, when it came together in my head, felt almost too clean to be true. Step 1. Remove my name completely. The lawyer had already drafted documents to sever my financial guarantees, and to ensure any debt left attached to the house could not be forced back on me. I signed and filed. It took 3 signatures and 1 board bank officer who finally asked, "Is this it?" I said yes. That afternoon, the mortgage notice changed, guarantor removed. My legal risk evaporated with an elegant little stamp. But legal separation wasn't enough. They needed to understand what adulting looked like. They needed to stand in the shoes they'd expected everyone else to wear for them without complaint. Step 2. I set up a conditional trust for Lily. I can see the question in your head, why Lily? Because she wasn't malicious. She was a child caught on a stage constructed by grown-ups. I could have ignored her. I could have let her birthday dissolve into the social media stomp that follows every family scandal. Instead, I did something that would force responsibility and offer betterment. I wired a fund, not the $7, $200 for a one-night spectacle, but a long-term education fund that would mean far more than any ballroom ever could. The trust would pay for school, for art classes, for whatever Lily chose, but there were clauses. Lily would only receive access to disbursements when an independent trustee verified that Rachel had maintained full-time employment for 2 consecutive years and that both parents had completed financial counseling and volunteer hours in a community program. In short, meet the adulting criteria, and Lily's future is secure. Fail, and the money remained locked. Then I wrote the letter. It was short and direct and left no room for the theatrics the family loved. I sent it to Dad, Mom, and Rachel with copies to their lawyer and for formality to my own. The letter explained the trust, it explained the conditions, it explained my reasons, it was compassionate and cold in equal measure. It said I loved them enough to stop bailing them out, and loved Lily enough to build her something that would not collapse under the weight of entitlement. Within hours, my inbox filled with the kind of messages that used to feel like a warm blanket and now felt like an accusation. How could you? You're cruel. Are you extorting us? They used the language of people who had never had to explain a budget. The narrative started, friends of friends took sides, local blogs dredged the human interest angle, and my phone dinged with suspicious strangers asking for interviews. I welcomed it. The story needed to be clear. People assume the loud voice is truth. I decided to set facts down where they could be seen. No melodrama, documents, dates, proof. That same day, Mr. Patel finalized the asset freezes. The contractor who'd been half paid for the renovations called, furious and embarrassed. The event hall, which had already issued Rachel a partial refund notice, canceled the deposit entirely and disclosed that refunds would be routed back through the bank audit. Rachel posted a tearful video blaming me for ruining Lily's life. It got traction for a day. Then people read the documents I released, the signed loan papers, the email trail where Rachel had registered a bank account under her company and rerouted funds. The sympathetic comments disappeared, replaced by stunned silence. People hate being lied to when it's obvious. Then came the move I knew would hurt them the most. I turned off the safety net they'd always expected. I closed my personal line of credit that had been set aside for family emergencies and transferred it into a small, anonymous fund for a local women's shelter. That was symbolic and practical in equal measure. Symbolic because I'd used the money to defend someone who had truly endured. Practical because the shelter needed funds and no one would ever be able to put my generosity and their consumption in the same ledger. They reacted as if I'd stolen sunlight. Dad made a public show of calling me, accusing me through posted texts, claiming I had ruined his retirement plan. Mom's calls were thin and tearful, designed to tug, but after the trust clause, those calls became treated carefully, almost like bargaining. Rachel imploded online, the sort of spectacle I used to feel guilty about watching until I remembered my teenage years, when she took my little drawings and taped them to the inside of a shoebox like a museum exhibit she owned. But the most meaningful part of the plan was that I made the alternative simple: choose to grow or watch the house and social capital crumble. To my surprise, Dad surprised me back. He did something I didn't expect. He called his bank and asked for help. Not from me, not from the father of excuses, but from the vague notion of accountability. I got the call on a rainy Tuesday. "Eva, I'm going to work. I don't know where this path leads, but I'm going to try." I let myself believe it for a moment, allowed that maybe my plan wasn't about punishment alone, but about creating a path forward that required sweat instead of signature. Months passed in that slow, domestic cruelty of consequence. Mom took a job managing a boutique she'd always sneered at. She hated early mornings and folding shirts, but she showed up. Rachel's shell company dissolved under audit, and she, after a humiliating job hunt and several nights living on couch cushions at friends' houses, landed an entry-level position at an events company where she learned how budgets actually worked. Lily's trust remained locked for a year until the lawyer, a kind woman with a soft voice and a precise pen, certified that Rachel had met the employment condition and that both parents had completed the financial counseling. The trust released 2 years later, after the family had demonstrated a consistent record of responsible behavior. Lily used the funds to go to summer art camp and later, with academic scholarships, to a small liberal arts college. I attended parent orientation in the front row, watched Lily show me her first portfolio with shyness turned pride, and felt a wash of something complicated forgiveness mixed with relief. I had not built this for my sister's flash parties. I had built it as a lever to pry a family out of a pattern of selfishness. There were moments when I wondered if I had been too harsh. There were occasions where I surprised myself by writing apologies I never sent and drafts of conversations I did not have. I told myself generosity needed boundaries, or it dissolved into expectation. And when, once, Mom knelt on my doorstep and begged me not to take her from Lily, I made her coffee and listened. I also required that she attend community finance classes and volunteer hours. Her humility started as performative but turned habit. I also did what I'd intended. I reclaimed my life. The business consultancy took off in ways I hadn't predicted. When you make decisions with clarity, clients sense it. I built a small team that admired ruthlessness when it came to balance sheets and kindness when it came to people. We saved companies, restructured debts, and ironically, helped other families learn the very lessons my family refused to take until consequences bit. In time, the ugly gossip faded, and what remained was a quieter narrative. People started to say, "She did what she had to." They would watch me in panels and think of me as a cautionary parable or a hero, whichever story fit their day. I stopped caring about the label. I cared about the result. The result was that I stopped being everyone's solution and started being my own person. You might expect a scene, a dramatic reunion with me standing on a porch, a long forgiveness monologue, and the family weeping in cinematic catharsis. That's not how it happened. Real life is never that tidy. Our reconciliation was incremental. There were dinners where we talked about budgets instead of betrayals. There were visits to Lily's art shows where Rachel, now sober from the intoxicating approval of Instagram, murmured, "You were right." There were moments where Dad, who'd once called me cold, admitted to being afraid of my independence because it mirrored the courage he'd never had. One small evening in late autumn, when the air had the peculiar translucence that makes Miami feel like a different city, I sat with Dad and Rachel on the stoop of the house that had nearly burned to foreclosure. We were drinking cheap takeout coffee, wrapped in blankets because someone could not find the heating in the house. Lily fell asleep with a sketchbook over her chest. We talked about nothing which, after a year of lawsuits and trust funds and Twitter wars, was everything. Dad turned to me and said, with his mouth half full of apology, "I don't have the right to ask you for anything anymore." "You never did," I said. "And yet," he continued, "I don't know how to be the father I should have been, but I'm trying. That's something, right? It's everything," I told him. I meant it. Trying is hard. It is messy and real and far more valuable than any ballroom or cake. The years after were quieter. I married the work I loved to the life I wanted. I traveled when I wanted and stayed when I needed. I watched Lily graduate high school and go off with a scholarship that had nothing to do with showy parties and everything to do with talent and discipline. I watched Rachel stand on a smaller stage, now the one who applauded hard and always on time. What I didn't do was forget, and I didn't pretend. My forgiveness had rules. My kindness had receipts. That is to say, I chose to help them rebuild, but I didn't help them avoid the lesson. A friend once told me that closing chapters doesn't always mean slamming a book shut. Sometimes it means folding the corner of the last page, so you can return and remember the bruise and the wisdom it left you. I folded my corner, and sometimes I read that page. It taught me how to spot narratives where others tried to write themselves into your ledger. It taught me how to be the person who sees the thin line between family and entitlement and refuses to cross it for anyone's convenience. People ask me sometimes if I regret any of it. They ask if the public unraveling of my family was worth the peace I earned. If I'm honest, the answer is complicated. I mourn the person my mother might have been had she chosen honesty sooner. I mourn the easy connection my sister once offered like a secret handshake. I mourned the simpler life where my credit could be used as a pillow. But next to the grief sits a sturdier thing, a life that is mine. The final move, the trust, the audits, the legal clean break didn't just change my family, it changed me. It loosened the hooks others had in me, and it taught me the cost of perpetual rescue. It also taught me the joy in building true stability for the people who mattered in the long run. On the morning the trust finally released a check for Lily's college art supply fund, she ran into my arms and whispered, "Thank you, Aunt Eva." Her voice was small and bright, and I let it be both recognition and absolution. That night, I sat on my balcony under a clear sky and thought of the text that triggered everything, the invoice photo, the cake, the ballroom. I thought of the way my father had shouted, "Pay or get out of this family." I thought of the sneer that had always lived in the crease of my sister's mouth. I felt in that hour an enormous relief, not because they had learned overnight, but because consequences had been allowed to do their slow work. Not because I had won, but because I had stopped being owned. And when the city lights blinked against the water and the breeze moved the loose pages on my desk, I whispered into the dark, as if offering a benediction to the woman I once was and the woman I had become, "You were right to cancel. You were right to draw the line. This is yours now." The next day, I put the money I'd saved from not being their bank into a small scholarship for young women in business. I built something that would outlast grudges and gowns and cakes. I taught myself and the world that the smartest revenge is the one that builds a future, not burns the past, and that the truest strength is knowing the difference between giving money and giving people the tools to change. If anyone needed a final moral to hang on the story, let it be this: boundaries are not walls, they are blueprints. They show people how to meet you where you stand, or they let them choose a different house. Both outcomes are freedom. Both are deserved.